My first visit to Shikli Huyuk was in 2015 after a conversation with archaeologist Muge Ergun. Muge and I met in Chadal Huyuk during summer 2007 when I was the artist in residence and she was working on site. Muge suggested that I visit Shikli Huyuk. The way she described the place sounded hard to believe. However, when I arrived there, I realized how accurate her description was. Furthermore, there were 13 replicas of Neolithic homes to experiment with. In Chadal Huyuk, there was only one. Living in the quarters with the team, I had the chance to get to know the archaeologists, watch their movements, and listen to their opinions. We shared breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the evenings seated under the porch looking at Hassan Dagh were full of poetry. Language was never a problem because we shared the same interest, the desire to enter the world of the people that inhabited that very same space more than 10,000 years ago. It was a revelation for me to watch those skillful professionals moving around the place, and I often imagined them as the ancient inhabitants of Ashikli. The experimental house labeled Unit 8 had the egress on the northeastern corner, and therefore at about 4 in the afternoon, there was a rectangle of light that produced a screen where one could perform shadow animation. With the help of Deria Talai and Shagla Kaya, we managed to perform a puppet show that would have easily been performed by the ancient inhabitants. Every day there was something new that made me feel close to the prehistoric humans. A few days later, Elchin Ekmetsky, sorry for my pronunciation, kindly offered to be my interpreter, and we visited 3 elderly women resident in Kizilkaya village next to Ashikli. We asked them about childhood experiences, how they remembered their homes were lit, and how the sun entered the windows of their houses. They were puzzled by my questions, but tried to give me an answer. Their entire life had been dedicated to their children and families. Nothing else mattered. Only one was envious of her children and grandchildren because they could read and write. 2 of them were extremely well looked after. The third, now a widower, could not bear children, and therefore she had not been very well treated by her husband. Again, meeting them, it brought me closer to the people that inhabited Ashikli. Another fascinating mystery that attracted me was the transition from circular houses to rectangular ones. You can see in the picture how the lower homes, therefore the oldest, are circular, and as time goes by, they become rectangular. What is the enigma behind this particular geometry? What could a rectangular home give to the people of Ashikli that a circular one could not? This will be my next project, my new project, and I hope that to find other artists willing to invest time in further research on the topic. Getting up in the morning with the sound of the birds, goats, dogs, the sun rising, the openness of the landscape, and the powerful presence of Hassan Dagh was quite something. In the picture, it is 5 a.m. The team is getting ready for the van that will take them to the site. The call for prayer was the reliable daily alarm clock. Years earlier in Chadal Huyuk, one night of full moon, I slept inside the experimental house. I pretended that the empty grave under my mat was not empty. I had weird dreams in which my ancestors came to visit me. There was a strong smell of dust and plaster as I lay on the floor. The room had human proportions, and it made me feel at ease. I wondered how would it feel sleeping there with the sound of the heavy rain outside or thunderstorm. I remembered how Ian Hodder had talked about the rooms being cluttered with objects, whereas Trevor Watkins, by the way, these 2 people are 2 archaeologists, I'm sure you know, considered that unlikely as the constant removal of belongings through the small egress would have been difficult if the walls were replastered and cleaned with the frequency that evidence shows. Our ancestors probably did not accumulate material goods to the degree that we do. One day, Hilal Gultekin joined me and Muge inside the experimental house in Çatalhöyük, and we pretended to be at home cleaning, cooking, and chatting, as well as lighting the oven. It felt very natural, and it was interesting to see how quickly we learned to transfer embers from a fire we built outside into the oven to prevent smoke from filling the room. We kept the fire going without smoke for several hours. Although we did not, we could have cooked an entire meal. Later, Hilal started to sing, and Muge could not resist dancing to accompany her. That same day, with Hilal, we walked to the nearest village of Küçükköy. We were invited to tea by the family of one of the guards working in Çatalhöyük. His wife had a massive oven in the patio, built in a very similar way to those found in the ancient homes. There was a technique to operate it that she tried to explain, insisting that it was very easy, but it seemed extremely complicated to us. Back in Ashikli, in this photo, we are seated under a parasol, drinking tea and enjoying a well-deserved break somewhere a few miles from the site. It was a day off for the team. How different would our gathering be from the gatherings of the people of Ashikli? If we change our clothes, shares, etc., we would probably be quite similar. Muge can dance beautifully. And in the evening, when she did so, she looked like a goddess. While she was feeding the filtering tank with tons of gravel, she would always have a smile on her face, even under temperatures over 45 degrees. Her aim was to extract minute specimens that, under the microscope, would reveal valuable information for the team. Fatma Kalkan was discreet, quiet, reserved. She looked like an Egyptian princess. I filmed her clearing the skeleton of a child. It was done with so much care that you would have thought that it was her own child. Sarah Yelovza was equally beautiful, modern and efficient, her attention fixed totally on what she was doing, serious but kind and gentle. Melis Usdurum reminded me of a stream of colorful butterflies, delicate yet so very strong, ready to solve any problem, to handle any situation. I do not have much time to add more descriptions, but I must mention Gunes Duro, co-director of the excavation, whose talents as a rock musician and singer are evident all over the site. He combines his capacity as an archaeologist with his musical skills, and I sensed it strongly in the silence of the experimental houses that he built. Midivanos Vasaran, the director of the excavation, has a passion for animals, plants, and flowers. Along with the mammoth job of running the excavation, she maintains the place as if it was her back garden, and there is always a new dog as part of the team. Midivan invited me to visit Ashikli again in 2017, but this time I brought with me Blanca Moreno, a Colombian painter who has dedicated most of her life to drawing and painting the forest, the rivers, and the depths of the Colombian Amazons. Her relationship with the landscape and the creatures that inhabit the forest, it is quite unique. I was certain that the geography of Anatolia would have an impact on her, and you can see the result in the images painted. I hear it say iron oxide, but it's not. It's painted with ink on the wonderful heights shown in our lines of sight exhibition. Unfortunately, COVID prevented her from visiting Istanbul this time, but you can find her work on this online page. You can see both of us in this picture watching the sunset in Ashikli Huyu, one of those magical evenings after dinner. During our stay, we were also living in the quarters with the team, and we both had the chance to talk to the archaeologists and learn about their thoughts and knowledge. All of it was invested in our work. Those conversations brought to us new material and ideas that would later be developed in the studio. Because the egress of the homes is on the roofs of the buildings, and it is placed at different cardinal directions, the angle of the beam of light differs in each unit. The variation is intentional and allows for experimentation, as the archaeologists do not know for sure where exactly it was placed in the actual homes. I filmed the journey of the light traveling inside the different homes from morning till dusk. My aim was to give the viewer a sense of the passing of time that transcends the millennia that separate us from the inhabitants of Ashikli. While I was filming, it was not difficult to imagine a woman like myself 10 millennia ago, seated on the floor of the house, watching the light move slowly across, creating a semicircle and disappearing at dusk. Watching the beams of light move slowly down the walls, across the floor and up again, I was made very much aware of the immateriality of time and how the existence of any living creature is limited to a brief duration of time. Yet, the humanity of prehistoric people is beyond question. The primate or primates that buried the three bodies found in Atapuerca, dating from almost 500,000 years ago, must have felt empathy, respect, or love to perform such action. The people of Ashikli were in tune with nature and were extremely sophisticated. Hardly any remains of their art has yet been found, and we do not know if, like Muge and Hilal, they sang and danced spontaneously or spoke poetry when Hassan Dagh appeared and disappeared behind the clouds. I believe humankind are at a crossroads, and that for our continued existence, we need more than ever to look for clues in those that have helped keep the human species going up till now. The final result of my studies was a video in which the different tracks of light moving across were speeded up so that the viewer could see the complete sequence. The video was to be projected in the main wall of a cubicle, replicating the exact dimensions of one of the experimental houses in Ashikli Huyur. What you can see at Kesuda Hammam is just a video of as the cubicle could not be built. Through the speakers, you can hear the sound of the river flowing and birds and other morning creatures singing. I imagine that the sounds of the Melendez River that flows next to the excavation to this day was not very different from my recording. In 2019, I invited two English colleagues to join me at the excavation, Dilwyn Smith and Anita Taylor. They are here in the panel and they can tell you firsthand about their experiences. Unfortunately, COVID has imposed limitations on all of us, but the flame is alive and we must proceed. My conclusion is that the dialogue that we have started between the archaeologists and artists is just the beginning. The exhibition speaks for itself. Art can offer dimensions that science does not have, and vice versa. Recent conversations with the Turkish artists proved to me further that such collaboration is extremely valuable, and I hope to extend the project to artists and archaeologists of other countries. Thank you very much.